Hello, welcome everyone. We would like to share two of our most favorite and very practical exercises from the fourth way tradition. These are primarily for the people coming to our fourth way group, but I know there are many honestly earnest people out there about applying these ideas, and if they benefit you, we are happy. Both of these exercises, like any other exercise in the fourth way, they are all about enhancing our capacity or preparing our capacity for what is called self-remembering, this conscious effort of being present to our life, being present to phenomena, as well as being present to the being, which is what we are, the being which is aware of the phenomena. And these are designed to be outside of ashram practice, no special conditions, the conditions of our everyday modern life with jobs and traffic, living in towns.
Yes, in the fourth way, our daily life is the ashram.
Mm,
It is the monastery. It is the
mm,
cave.
right. And all of them are for either reminding us about this being present practice, self-remembering practice, reminding us to unveil ourselves from identification and daydreaming, or to help us have more frequency of this more often throughout the day rather than just for the group meeting or meditation. And as this frequency, this increased frequency will break into more duration as we have these exercises activating themselves more often and the state of being present is more frequent, then it will open into longer duration. And these are the prerequisites for us to have actual more deeper insight and accessing what they talk in non-duality, this what am I, what is the nature of this being, uh, all of this deep investigation of the nature of presence. But those are end up being theoretical and philosophical if we don't have this foundation of ongoing practice of frequency and duration. All right, two exercises. One is for outdoor practice, and one is for indoor practice. The outdoor practice is whenever you are outside, whatever activity, especially walking or cycling, to instead of being lost in daydreaming or on the phone or in these days, to pay particular attention to nature, the beauty of nature, the details of nature, to have this childlike, innocent curiosity, wonder. Although we may not have this wonder initially because we are glazed over, but to make an effort to notice the trees without calling them trees, without labeling them, to really look at this phenomena, this unfolding of the tree or the clouds in the sky. Even you are on a busy street, to look for trees, for flowers in the gutter, as well as for details of architecture. That's a wonderful exercise to, instead of looking down, lost in thought, to look up, maybe look up as the rooftops and all kind of ornaments, carvings, and use that as a anchoring into the present moment, and use that present moment noticing to come back to the sense of being aware of myself, being being present to that impression, that ornament, that tree as a foot in the door of presence, then include more sounds, the state of my body, and the sense of presence. And these are meant to combat this state of busyness, momentum, going somewhere. So in order to foster a sense of arriving and living fully, consciously, as we are outdoors, will not just bring more awareness and getting out of our head or suffering with what's not happening, but we may bring this sense of touched by beauty. As we are more present to these impressions, it will feed the emotion center, be much more interesting life.
And as you said in the beginning, Mihai, these exercises, and this is such a good example, we're using them to engender presence, to engender awareness. And if when we are more consciously aware, and we're, for example, walking down the street or walking in nature, without any effort at all, we notice what is around us. We are witnessing creation, and can be simple, it can be poetic, it can be profound, it can be mysterious, it can be all of these things. But the point is, we see it and we are aware. Awareness is aware as this seeing, as this beholding. But what happens when we are not consciously aware, and this is what the fourth way calls falling asleep, when we're asleep, consciousness is now dimmed down and is asleep. We walk in the city, we even walk in a beautiful setting in nature, we don't see what's right in front of us. We don't see what is around us. We kind of vaguely notice, though, the color in the sky is nice. That's a lovely tree. There's some flowers, but we don't really look. We don't really notice that we're looking at an aspect of creation in a different form, in all its many forms, at least its many forms on earth. And this exercise, this practice, this technique is meant to, we're usually sort of leaning on our imagination about the past and future most of the time. We're leaning left or right, you could say, into the past or into the future as we walk. We're in a daze. We're anticipating what we're going to do, what we just did, etc. And now an exercise like this gives us a grip on the present. Now we have a way to hold to the present. And by virtue of holding to the present, our own presence of being can come into focus. This is what this is really about. This is not about just controlling attention and trying to notice everything in the world around us. It's about bringing the being of presence into focus. It's funny, we don't actually bring it into focus. It comes into focus, this awareness. But we can use attention, which in the fourth way is called an effort. We can control our attention purposely in this way. And this can engender presence. This can enable presence to come into focus and realize itself. And it goes without saying, you will know when this happens. You will notice that you are more present, you are more aware. As the fourth way says, you're more awake, more conscious. And you won't necessarily notice when you fall asleep. And when you drift back into imagination and you forget you're even walking on the path or walking down the street in a city, you will. But when you then realize you have not been doing that and you're back again, you're once again aware again, then you will understand the value of an exercise such as this one. And this ties to what Mihai was saying about frequency and duration of awareness. An exercise like this enables us this grip on the present in this way with attention enables us to come back and induce more frequency of awareness, more frequency of self-remembering. And then by virtue of that, it, it can flower into more duration, naturally so, more organically. And the architecture is the same way. And a trick, I've mentioned it before, not a trick, but a method is to look above the first floor of buildings when you walk in the city. The first floor is usually inundated with advertisements and signs and posters, and it's a clutter of things. But you can go right to the second floor higher. You begin to see the building, the nature of the building, the architecture, the window sills, the details, the carvings, as Mihai mentioned. And this again just makes you more aware of where you are in your surroundings, especially when walking in the city or town.
And one other idea, which is common to a lot of these exercises, the fourth way, is based on this, that the present moment attentiveness is a middle ground, is a portal. The present is a portal. What's in the present is an accessing point towards the presence. But if we miss what's in the present, then we are definitely going to miss the presence, which is here. It's a little bit like we have a building with three levels. And there's a basement level where we live, usually in the usual so-called normal state, where there's no attention and we are totally lost in something, or we are in daydreaming. That's the basement level. The next level up is we have attention in the present. We see, we hear, we notice. And then level 2 is that being in the present, now we are very close to sensing our own presence, what they call in non-duality being aware of being aware. But we can't go from the basement to the second floor, from checked out into being aware of being aware. That's a way to sustain this. And gradually, as you are, if you're really interested in these things, that starts to build a certain love for this. And there will be a little bit less, much less effort to be as what animals are. They are in essence and in the present.
Another tip in this regard is the tendency when first hearing about this can often be to force attention. There can be a tension associated with attention. We feel tense. We're tensely trying to, as a result of trying to be aware, but to relax, to look with relaxed attention. This is more the nature of awareness itself. You could almost call it relaxed attention that is conscious of itself. And Gene Klein had a lovely expression. He referred to it as affectionate awareness. This is a nice way to look at the world, to look at other people, to look at one's own life with affectionate awareness, which implies gentleness and neutrality, sweetness, pure honesty, and relaxed. That's not the best word, really, but that can imply closer to what we're talking about. What presence is, when presence sees the world, the external world, and the internal world, it sees with affectionate. You could almost say loving awareness.
The second exercise is about this area of being indoors, the house, cooking, cleaning, the office, corridors. Usually in those spaces, we forget about our spiritual goal, about awakening. We forget and we get lost in this life momentum of getting somewhere, doing something, and all the lofty spiritual orientation we have is falls to the back burner, and often we are doing those activities. The body is doing those activities, or as we call in the fourth way, the moving center is moving around, doing things while being in imagination, or even if we are attentive, there is a sense of urgency, of rushing, or haste, of momentum. And the exercise for the indoor is to be aware of the body moving, be aware of different moving parts, or to be aware, be present to the moving center. The legs, then the arms, the hands, the fingers, the moving about, which is happening all the time. Doing things, grabbing things, manipulating things, moving about, and simply being present to the moving center. And it really changes the perspective. Instead of me in a haze doing stuff, it's me as this witnessing presence, aware of the body / moving center doing stuff. And an additional variation to this is, as you catch yourself a little bit unnecessary hurry, a little going from the office to the bathroom, from the computer somewhere else, there is a little bit of a going there, but from here to there that is missed. There's there-ness, and then coming back. There is always going somewhere, but we are never home in the journey. A recommended variation is to, when you notice that, to slow down the movement. For a long time, it's very useful to slow down the movement in order to have more space for being present to the movement.
And this movement includes, for example, when we get up from a chair, we've been sitting, we get up, there can be a sudden movement to get up and go. We push our chair away from the desk and we're up, as opposed to realizing we're going to get up and then slowing it down and getting up and being present while getting up, being present while getting out of the chair, and then being present starting to walk away from the chair. This isn't meant to be a zombie-like slow motion act. It's meant to just slow down the motor from our usual 75 miles an hour to maybe 50 miles an hour, or slower if you want to, as an experiment, but to slow down and realize the moving center is operating by itself much of the time. We are not conscious. Awareness is not in focus while this is happening. And we're doing this simply to create this space for awareness. And what's interesting, when you slow down your movements and try to be present, you will by default naturally become more aware of your body in space. Normally, we're not aware of our body in space, in three-dimensional space. When you do this, suddenly you see this body, this three-dimensional body, moving in space. And this is the same thing that happens internally. When we look at our thoughts and our emotions, suddenly we become aware of that space, that internal space, when we're more present. But the same thing when we go to sit back in the chair at the desk, for example, to not just come and plop into the seat and pull the chair up, and to realize, okay, here I am at the chair, I'm going to sit down now in the chair, and to be conscious of the body as it makes the maneuver to sit down in the chair, and to just and feel the chair and have this all be very much a tactile experience with great depth and great wonder. And when you are more present, you will find that you do naturally slow down, because there's no impulse to rush. There's no impulse to go to the next thing. There's no impulse to get something finished, done. There's no impulse to be at the conclusion. Our consciousness really has no interest in that. It's only when it falls into this momentum, which the fourth way calls identification, which then quickly becomes imagination, a stream of imagination. And then what happens is, quite literally, the moving center carries us away with it in terms of us being awareness. We want the moving center to carry us, but we don't want it to carry us away with it in terms of our awareness falling asleep in momentum. And another thing about being at home and doing this inside or in an office is this can be then inconspicuous, especially if you're not around other people. And if you are, don't be conspicuous. Just slow the engine down from 75 to 60. Just slow it down a little bit, enough for you to be more present without drawing unnecessary attention to yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, these are, it reminds me of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, who was giving all these short sutras for everyday life, saying when you get into a car and about to drive, to pause for a moment and tell yourself, I have arrived in the present moment. So to arrive as we are moving. And another variation is when we're actually sitting or sitting in a meeting or listening to someone, to really let the body be as relaxed and passive as possible. To really, to call it die. Often, even if we sit, there's a lot of unnecessary movement and movement that is emanating out of the emotional state of antsiness or this agitation is playing out. We try to keep an eye on that and use that fidgeting or nail scratching, fidgeting, playing with a pencil. Use that as an alarm clock. Bring you back to just being there, arriving, relaxing the body. Yeah. All right. So yeah, play with it and feel free to share with us, even in comments here or in our next meeting.
Yes,
And
being present during outdoor living and being present during indoor living. Two tips here for promoting, engendering, and supporting presence
yeah.
in those two environments. Wonderful.
And maybe it's a good time to share briefly. We are going to do a weekend, fourth way circle of being retreat immersion, 26th, 28th of July in Nevada City. And you've been watching us, you're interested, you'll find the details soon. Hope to see you there.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mihai.